We have Mr. Aamir Khan and Mr. Ashok Amritraj. Our chairperson and moderator is an acclaimed film director and producer whose works have gained national and international recognition. Mr. Amritraj, please join us on stage. Our moderator has many talents, which I don't think I need to enumerate. If I could request Mr. Shekhar Kapoor to please join us on stage. It's on. It's on.
I just thought I'd make a great late entry to get an applause. So can you do it again, please? Thank you.
Mr. Kapoor, the floor is yours.
Mine?
Yes.
Okay. Entertainment next. Huge, wide topic. So I think my job right now is to try and contain it. So let me just set the parameters of what we might talk about, but of course we might talk about completely different things. Aamir, Ashok, can I go? Yeah. Right. Can I tell you a little story about Aamir before I talk about entertainment? I promised it's a story I never revealed. Amongst the various films that I never made was a film called Time Machine, which you all heard about, and Aamir had just done a film called Qayamat Se Qayamat Tak, and I called him to my office and I said, Aamir, I'm going to make a film with you called Time Machine. And he said, you're going to make a film with me? I said, yes. And he sat and sobbed. So I just wanted to tell you that he's
sat and sobbed?
He sat and cried.
Okay.
Okay, no, he cried. He's
what Shekhar doesn't know is why I cried.
That was okay. Interesting reaction.
Okay. Entertainment next, very wide topic. Let's go one by one. I think in the audience mind, one of the big things will be Bollywood next. I mean, entertainment next. I always get asked the question, what is Bollywood next? So let's first say, where is Indian cinema? Where will it go? Where will it be? Is this hype that we are creating, is it a true hype or is it a false hype? I'll open that question out. And if it is, if it's true and we are going and we are heading towards being part of an international cinema and internationally be effective and influential, then how do we do it? Are we going to do it? Okay. After that, let's touch on topics on, will cinema survive? Will TV survive in the way it does? See, remember that for 40 years, the technology of delivery systems haven't really changed. There's been cinema, and it's gone, it's better, it's more technological. But for 40 or 50 years, that's how it's been. For 40 or 50 years, that's how TV has been. Effectively, there's a box and you deliver in whichever way you deliver the content in the box. And suddenly everything's changing. So entertainment next. Suddenly we have such technology and such great delivery systems. You've got the cell phone in which people are saying, now you're going to get your entertainment through the cell phone. We've got effectively what technology is doing is taking away the gatekeepers. So that if a kid in Dharavi, which is the largest slum in Asia, if a kid is bright enough, we can give that child the technology to achieve and to relate to billions of people all worldwide. And he can do it through YouTube. There are YouTube things that are getting hits of almost 10 million at this moment. So we have the technology of getting the consumer not only in touch with mass audiences through technology, we'd also have consumers now co-creating content for creation and consumption amongst themselves. So is that where entertainment is heading? Another question. Newspapers, magazines, television. We are on that. Is it going to survive in its gatekeeping form? When you buy $300 million licenses, effectively you're paying a lot of money to buy a license to become a gatekeeper. Effectively, that's what technology is hitting out at. So I have a blog that 300,000 to 400,000 people come to, but there are blogs that millions and millions of people come to. I can start a TV on my blog. Why do I need to go through a gatekeeper? I can do podcasts. Are we heading to a future where somebody can pick up, where's my cell phone? I switched it off. So I was talking to somebody and said, what do you want to do? They said, what we want to do is get up in the morning at 8:30 in the morning, turn on my cell phone and say, hey, I'm Shekhar. I'm broadcasting at 8:30, and all the world, if I'm good enough, will be able to hear it. So where do TV stations stand? Where does content that is created for a gatekeeping system stand? Are we now heading into a world where we're giving so much choice to consumers that they will create channels amongst themselves? So is entertainment next a much more democratic relationship between the consumers who select their content providers? And is that where we're heading, and how will that world work? Am I, Shekhar Kapoor, about to become a dinosaur? Will the 2.5 hour story survive? Will interactivity lead to a point where the audience is saying, tell us your story in 10 minutes? In Asia, especially, where people don't like to sit at home, they like to go out a lot. And we keep saying, we keep talking about, every time we talk about entertainment, we say home delivery system. Yeah, maybe it'll be DVD, maybe it won't be theater. Maybe if it's nothing like that, maybe it's interactive. Especially in Asia where people don't have large enough homes. You know, we have homes, small homes with 7 or 8 people with servants and families live. Everybody wants to go out. How do you do a home theater system when people go out? So is the cell phone going to be the greatest is it going to be the greatest delivery system that people will consume from? And what form will be that content? Are we creating enough of that content? We're investing billions and billions of dollars in delivery systems, hoping that somehow the content Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi will somehow be redone and recut and go into your cell phone. I don't think that will happen. The culture of technology and the culture of content must move together, in my view. Let's discuss that. Are the technology companies, is Cisco, which is actually creating, it's the largest pipeline, it's the plumber of the technology all over the world, it's giving you the ability to pipe. Are they going to be forced to become content providers? Steve Jobs started off by selling the iPod and has now become a music company. He's soon become a film company. He's become a content company. So, how do we define entertainment now? Is entertainment co-creation between myself and my audiences in a very much more particular form? So I'm throwing out a lot of questions later for the audiences to ask, but I think my 10 minutes are over. So I'm going to hand it. So why don't we start with the first question? Aamir, tell us about Bollywood. Tell me about your aspirations about Bollywood, and tell me, because there's this big hype. Everywhere I go, India is a hype and Bollywood is a hype. And then I ask people, what did you see? And they say, we saw a song on the television somewhere. It seems to me that the hype and the content, we don't have enough product to satisfy that hype. Do we have product? Is it just not being marketed? How do you see the future of that?
Well, in my opinion, I think that when we do look at what is next for Indian cinema, I think, as you said, one of the aspects could be newer audiences. So conventionally, we have made films for an Indian audience, or an audience which includes Pakistan, Bangladesh. These are the people who watch Sri Lankans, who watch Indian films primarily. I think that for us to, as a film industry, I think we have very capable people, we have great talent. And I think that our audience is so large and healthy that we've never felt the need as filmmakers to look outside to another audience. I can't think of any filmmaker offhand who has made a film from India, but his audience is intended to be the world audience. It doesn't come to my head straight away.
Meera Nair?
Meera Nair, I don't consider her Indian.
Okay.
You know, she's not an Indian filmmaker. That's not, I don't see her as an Indian filmmaker. She's someone who's always looked at an international audience. I'm talking of the filmmakers here right from, the last 80 years that, Indians have been making films. We've been making films primarily for our own audience, and I think that's a great thing. I think we have such a large and healthy audience that all our energies and attention goes towards entertaining our own audiences.
Can I keep butting in?
Sure.
So Raj Kapoor created films for our audience and managed to create a huge audience outside.
Sure, I was coming to that.
Okay.
In fact, Indian cinema has had an impact across the world, maybe not so much in the US and Europe, but in a lot of other parts of the world without the producers intending it. For example, Raj Kapoor. Or many films starting from, I would say, the 50s. So you have audiences for Indian cinema in the Middle East, in Egypt, in Africa, in Russia, in the Far East. This is something that as producers, we have been unaware of largely. People like Kishorullah have been aware of this, who was the big distributor for films outside of India. We've been unaware. I mean, when I went to Morocco for the first time, this was in 2002 or 2003, I was the guy getting mobbed, not Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah,
no one knew who he was.
I was filming in Morocco, and everybody found Shekhar Kapoor from Bollywood is filming a film, and everybody left the Star Wars set. All the Moroccans came rushing to think I might be shooting with Aamir or Shah Rukh, and they were very disappointed. I was shooting with Heath Ledger.
So I think what Indian cinema has done, I mean, over the years, is without really intending to, without having a plan in mind, or without having it in mind, I think somehow organically it has managed to touch a chord with audiences in certain parts of the globe. And that's great. I think that's wonderful. But I think for us to actually ever reach a stage where we want to seriously entertain a world audience, then we'll have to look at the world audience seriously. And I think we haven't even begun doing that. In my opinion, we've not even begun doing that.
Do you think we should? Because what you said is that it's a great thing that we satisfy an audience. It's a little incestuous. Really.
No, I don't think so. I think it's great. I think it's great to have such a big and huge, healthy audience to entertain. I think that's, personally, as an entertainer, I'm really satisfied with that. Emotionally, I connect with the audience that I have been entertaining over the last 20 years now. And I enjoy connecting with them and entertaining them. So there isn't really an urge in me to try and entertain a world audience, which is not to say that I would not like to. I'm not totally against it. And I think that it is only when a filmmaker from India really decides that, okay, or a bunch of filmmakers from India decide that, okay, now we want to look at the international audience. It's like food, you want people all over the world to have Indian food. So you figure out a way to cater to them, but you have to first look at them. Okay. You have to look at who you're trying to satisfy. You have to look at who your audience is. We have the right cooks. If we want to entertain a world audience, we want to break that barrier and go into a world market, then we have to want to do that. I think that is the first step. We have to decide to do that. And with that intention, I'm sure we can crack that. I don't think that's a big deal.
Can I go to Ashok? You said something very interesting. Do we have the right cooks?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I mean, I'd like to address a couple of the things you started out by saying, which is, over the last 27 years that I've been making films, I've seen different kinds of technology, whether it's originally in the early 80s, there was the VHS and the Betamax when we started the video, and we know what happened in that battle, and Sony got smart and figured out how to get control over the content, and now they have the Blu-ray, which beat the HD DVD format. Then came pay cable, and you had satellite, and in each case, box office pundits pretty much said that, the box office was, it was doom and gloom for the box office. Well, in each case, the box office grew, and in each case, new revenue streams were created. I agree with Shekhar in that I think new media and the cell phones or video on demand are going to increase the market enormously. It's also going to make things very democratic. It's going to make it easier for content makers to have their talent seen across the world. For people like myself sitting in Los Angeles, I and my executives are able to see little movies that filmmakers make around the world, and they put them up on YouTube or they put them up on the net, and we're able to see the talent of people, and we're able to choose from Asia and China and, and India and everywhere else. As regards, India, I think there's an extraordinary amount of talent in front of and behind the camera. I think, the younger filmmakers have started to make more diverse and different films. The distribution is a little bit of a dichotomy in that while the foreign market grows, I think the methods of distribution are old-fashioned and in many cases archaic.
Sorry, the method of Indian films or films in general?
Films. No, Indian films being distributed abroad. I think if you look at the American distribution of Indian films, you look at it being distributed on 100 screens in primarily outer-lying theaters for the NRI community.
Can we put it in context?
Let me just say that it isn't given the shot that it should be given. if it is given a shot, you don't know what could happen, but it is not given that shot.
Okay, you run one of the biggest and most successful foreign sales company, and you're a big producer, so you're constantly looking at this. Ashok, let's put it in context for everybody. Let's say films from India, what's the maximum business that you think overseas that a film from India has done?
Right now, I mean, it's negligible. I mean, it's in the overall scheme of things. I mean, depends on what you compare it to. If you compare it to what Indian films did 10 years ago, there's been incredible growth.
If
you want to compare it to, am I going to pick up an Indian film for foreign distribution or an American film for foreign distribution? There's no comparison.
So let's just put it into context. Let's compare it. I know that, like, given all the revenue streams from a film like Hero or Crouching Tiger, they would have touched about $300 million, right?
Yes.
Or more, given everything. $300 million from a Chinese film in a Chinese language, what, 12 years ago? And then another Hero, which has done $100 million in Asia, $200 million in America, has $300 million. Then the DVD and everything gives almost a $500 million revenue streams. $500 million from one Chinese film in Chinese. What's the maximum we've got from an Indian film?
I don't know the numbers. I mean, you guys probably
Would
know
I
the
say
numbers
25
better,
million?
but it's, I think, probably somewhere there.
All over the world, yeah, not more than that.
Not more than 25. That includes Indian box office.
Well, even if you go into some really big success, if you look at the rest of the world, I mean, including the Middle East, where Indians do quite a lot of business, South Africa, I mean, all the world except India, or even if you do include India.
Yeah. So, the gap.
Yeah.
Why is it that China's managed to do it and we haven't?
Well, I think you have a basic difference. Chinese films, the basis is martial arts. Martial arts is more accessible to a Western audience. I think in Indian films, you have brilliant photography, colors, and you have songs and dances which are slightly more inaccessible to a guy sitting in Iowa or Idaho to watch. There is a little bit of a problem there. However, I will also get to the point that what Aamir said, you have a very vibrant home market, and many times when you have to please your core audience, it is fairly difficult in this particular case to also please both. Now, I will say, not because he's here, but and I don't watch a lot of the films, but the one that I did like and I thought made an extraordinary effort was Lagan, and I thought it had an idea that obviously pleased the core audience, but also had that spark where, you know, it was innovative, it was entrepreneurial, and was very interesting for a Western audience. Very badly distributed outside of India, but sorry. But
I completely agree.
I
wasn't distributor.
So would you buy a Lagan, Ashok?
Huh?
Would you buy a Lagan?
Yes.
And if you cut it down from 3 hours, 20 minutes to 2 hours, then you would buy it?
I don't know.
Would you ask
I don't
me to
know.
do that?
That I would have to watch it about 5 more times.
All right.
Yeah.
So quick question. Let's then wrap this up. Both to you, Ashok and Aamir, is this huge gap. Should we do it? Should we try and make a film in India that does $300 million worldwide? Do you think that because of all the hype that India is getting, it is part of us to also use that hype and go out and create influence? Do you believe that films influence?
You know, I think this has to happen organically. I don't know whether we can plan to do it and decide to do it. I think each individual filmmaker needs to decide for himself or herself what audience they want to address. I think Indian filmmakers, the creative people here, have the ability to entertain a world audience. They have to just decide that they want to entertain a world audience, and they can do that. It's something that should happen organically, I really believe. I don't know whether we should decide about it and, you know, make some plan of action or something. I think it should happen organically, and I also feel on some level that the form that we have of Indian cinema is very dear to me. And I would like to, given the opportunity, I would like to make a film, perhaps someday, in which we retain the form that we have of ourselves and still entertain a world audience. I believe that we can do that. Having said that, I'm saying that, you know, it's really up to each individual filmmaker. If today I want to decide to make a film for an international audience, I would do the basics of, you know, making sure it's not 3 hours, 42 minutes, you know.
Of course.
The basics would be into place. Even in terms of screenplay, the structure would be such that it follows a grammar which is more accessible to an international audience.
The two Indian films, Bollywood films that have been the most successful in the world, one was made by Baz Luhrmann called Moulin Rouge, and the other was Titanic. I could tell you, I was watching Titanic and I was sitting with my then wife, and I could, every moment I said, this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, because
But they were made perfectly, though.
yeah, no, wait a minute,
I mean,
wait a minute.
it's-
And they
the
were following
execution was
exactly the, so let's get it. I'm trying to exactly understand. It was exactly that. I said, you know what? This is a time when she's going to slap her fiancé. Well, he did better. She spat on him, you know? So it went exactly on the formula of how we make Indian films. And if you put songs in it, it would be in a Hindi film. And then Baz Luhrmann made Moulin Rouge, which was like a musical, and he watched Indian film after Bollywood film and created these are two very successful films. So my question to you, Ashok, what do we do if we do?
You know, I absolutely think Indian filmmakers should reach out. I think they're talented enough. I think they absolutely should be making movies, a section of the movies. I mean, you make enough movies, a section of the movies that should look to the international market, to an international audience. One second, I think India is at a crossroads where many directors and producers that I talk to are all making 10 movies for some corporate company or the other. And there seems to be too many movies, too much of money chasing too few good movies. And the way to attain one of those international movies is not by signing up for 10 movies and figuring out how to do it within 3 years. It's going to take a lot of thought, a joint effort in some way with the marketing group that you're working with. So it's a significant uphill task.
Ashok, you are here for a reason. You've just done a television show looking for directors. You're trying to find talent out of India to make films internationally based out of India. That's what you're doing. So you must have some kind of optimism that is going to happen. You've just talked about corporatization. So let me ask you, is corporatization a good thing for cinema? Consider this. Entertainment ultimately is a thing. It is about variety. Variety entertainment is how we call it. It's about variety. It's about individuality. Corporations essentially run through standardization, right? You cannot run McDonald's.
You got to differentiate. I mean, I totally believe corporatization is good for the business. Okay. However, there's got to be people within the organization that care about the movies they're making. Okay, you've got to be in a position where you're just not handing a guy a deal for 10 pictures and say, go make it. You know, you've got to be involved every step of the way. Otherwise, why are you going to take the initiative to change the distribution pattern of a certain film? Well, if it's cookie cutter, go make me 10 films and I'll throw it out on 50 screens in the U.S. You're never going to improve. So as long as you care and have passion about at least 2 or 3 or 4 of those, yes, you want your stock price to go up. Yes, you want to make 20 movies because you promised that you're going to do that. But you've got to be able to give it the best shot you can on a certain number of movies.
Okay.
I think the key to that, I agree with you, Ashok, and I think the key to that will be for corporates here in India who are just starting out to actually have the ability to develop material, because that's the gold, for any business house or any production house. The ability to develop good scripts is going to be key. If I have to, as a corporation, make 15 films a year, I have to develop 100 scripts to finally end up with 15 that are worth making.
But that's absolutely what we do, as you know, Shekhar, in LA. I mean, we are presented, my company's presented probably 1,000 projects a year. We end up developing 10 and we make 4.
Yeah, well, it's not even that.
Yeah.
In fact, in Hollywood at this moment, if you look at it, I'm not saying it's a good thing, I think that's terrible also, but they have more money invested in development than they have in production at any one given time. For those that you got to understand, when we talk about development in the entertainment business, to all other industries, it's R&D. Every industry invests a lot of money in research and development. What is happening in the entertainment industry, we don't invest in research and development.
In India. In India. Yeah. And that is something we need to start doing if we really want to make a difference. I think that's going to be one of the key things. Also, what is happening is that because I think in India, I may be wrong, but I think what's happening in India is that these corporations have kind of suddenly come on the scene.
Yes.
So what has happened, it's not grown organically. So you have a lot of money, now you don't know what to do with it. And you have to quickly make a lot of films.
I know what to do with it. Give it me. Okay.
No, so the problem that happens is that the people who can green light a project, a studio head or someone who's in the position of green lighting a project, has to be someone with the kind of creative experience to be able to greenlight the right projects. Now, if I'm someone who is from the telecom business, for example, and I have been brought in to look after an entertainment business, I may know how to deal with figures, I may know how to deal with people, and I may know how to deal with the big organization, but I may not know which script to pick. So you need people up there in these brand new organizations, which are,
you look at a company like Rupert Murdoch's company, look at News Corp, Rupert doesn't pick the scripts, I mean, he has Jim Giannopoulos and Tom Rothman who work on the project. Similarly, Time Warner, similarly, GE by buying NBC Universal. They all have people, who run the studio, who work closely with the filmmakers, the producers, and so on. I also find the producers here in India are very lacking, not counting you as a producer, but a non-creative producer doesn't work closely with the director or the actors, and there's not a interactive thing going on, so it becomes your responsibility to then build your production company into a different area, so that, I mean, you happen to be a producer, director, and a star, but there are others who shouldn't be, necessarily. So I think there's a few different areas between development and growth into corporatization that kind of has to all come together.
Sure, let's move on from this and let's talk about the next things that are happening. But let me just say something. When you look at the statistics of Indian films, 95% of the films that have been successful in the history of Indian cinema have been produced and directed by the same person, or produced by the actor and he's starring in it, or produced by the father and the son is directing. There is something talking about non-corporatization and individuality in cinema that, I mean, yes, corporates have come in 5 years ago. What were the two biggest hits this year? A film made by Aamir, starring himself, produced by himself. A film made by Shah Rukh Khan, starring himself, produced by himself. There's something about individuality in that, and both of them have completely excluded corporatization.
But Shekhar, I think that will happen. That will never stop happening. There will be individuals who...
It doesn't happen in the West.
I think it's just starting out here in India. I think that we should give the corporates some time. It's too early to comment about them. I think they're like almost babies. See, I've been in this field for 20 years.
Who feels like a corporate baby here? Tell me.
No, seriously. I mean, as a creative person, I've been looking at script for 20 years. Now, the head of a corporate today, who's not been part of the entertainment business, I mean, maybe in terms of age, he might be older than me, I have no idea, but in terms of experience of how to pick scripts, he's just 6 months old. So I think you should give them a bit of time.
Okay. Let's move on. You said that you can't expect somebody who works in a telecom business to come in and talk about script writing. Here's my question. Are the telecom companies going to be the new creators and owners and purveyors of content? Will film, we've been talking about film, will it survive in its present form, or are the audiences asking for a much more interactive way of dealing with us? If all the questions I raised earlier, let's talk about it. Let's ask Ashok, do you think, okay, let me ask you another thing. The studio system depends on two things. The studio system is the greatest gatekeeper of all. They talk about distribution, right, and marketing, which gives them their own distribution marketing outlets. We know that the internet is a great disruptor for marketing, and we have seen a film like Cloverfield, talked about, which came out, which was it was virally sold, and by the time it became everybody knew about it. So these are things I want you to touch upon. Where are we heading? Are we heading for film to be a dinosaur? Are we heading for a completely different kind of entertainment? All three of us are known as filmmakers, actors, filmmakers, or you've been in the process of what we call the old media. Is the new media leaving us behind? How are we going to catch up with it?
Well, I mean, I'm one of the few companies, I think, today where we exclude the studios to a great extent from the creative process. We finance our films, we distribute them internationally, and just in the United States and Canada, where the studios dominate, they distribute the films for me, whether it's Premonition, Bandits, whatever. The studio is the gatekeeper right now in distribution. They control the theaters, they control the tentpole films, which gets them to theaters. I think overall, I don't think I would ever wish for the movie experience to go away.
Not wish. Let's look at reality.
I don't think it will ever go away. I think on a Friday night, the kids are going to go out to the movie theater, they're going to get their bag of popcorn or whatever it is, and they're going to go to the movies. I did it when I was 8 years old watching The Sound of Music. I do it now. I will do it always.
You didn't grow up playing video games.
I knew that was exactly what you were going to say, but I will say I think the movie-going experience, and as the theaters get better in India as well, here, I don't think it'll ever go away.
I hope you're right. Stops me becoming a dinosaur.
That doesn't mean, I just think that what you're talking about is a completely new stream of revenue where you can sit at home. For instance, we just made a 3D film with Sony, okay? And it's going to go out in 800 screens because those are the screens that you can actually play 3D on. But they're setting up a system where you can do it at home, and you have the crazy glasses, and you watch it at home, and you go through the same experience. So you don't necessarily need to trade one for the other. I think they will both exist. They will both coexist, as the DVD and the theaters and everything else.
I'll take that. I'll ask Aamir, then we'll throw it open. Please, is interactivity changing the nature of the game? Is a huge question. I'll just come to Aamir back here, and then we'll come back to the audience.
Yeah.
Aamir, what do you think?
I think I would be really surprised if down the years we find that cinema is no longer existing and theaters don't exist and films aren't made anymore. I'd be really surprised. I think that what will happen is new technologies will come in, which will become an added revenue stream for films and cinema. The reason I'm saying this, I could be wrong, but the reason I feel this is that I think cinema is probably the youngest art form that we have today. It incorporates all the previous art forms that have existed over the years and have grown over the years, over the centuries, I would say. And it incorporates all of these. I don't know of any other dimension that I can think of today, which can come in, which can dramatically change what is entertainment for us. So while you'll have internet content, while you'll have mobile content, a lot of the content that is going to be available on internet and mobile will again be from films.
Okay.
You know, people want to download Shah Rukh's latest song or, you know, Hrithik's latest photograph or whatever, you know.
All right, we'll open that. We hope it will. I am actually disagreeing, but we can talk about that. I think that soon we'll be saying, well, there's also another added revenue stream to what we're doing, and that's the movie theater. It won't be the other way around. So,
can I touch on just one thing, though? Sure. I think with all the revenue streams being created and all the great methods of distribution, perhaps the greatest concern facing us is piracy. And I think in whether it's Hollywood or India, it doesn't really matter. Hollywood spends millions of dollars every year fighting piracy. We probably lose $5 billion of revenue every year to piracy. Unfortunately, I'm not even sure if the younger generation understands that downloading movies, sharing movies, and all of that, or buying a DVD for 50 cents in Taiwan is necessarily piracy. But that aside, I'm a little surprised, and I would like to ask this question. Does India do enough to fight piracy?
I'm glad you asked that question. There is, sorry.
No, it doesn't. I think India does pathetically less to fight piracy. I think it's really shameful that we as an industry have not, we've been aware of this problem, but we've really not come together to solve this problem. No, we haven't.
It's going to kill you once the internet.
Yeah.
It's going to be an added revenue stream once you get it digitally inclusive. Now, let me just figure out.
See, the thing is that having put in money, time, and effort into making something, the person consuming it is also willing to pay for it, but there's somebody in between who's actually taking it away. Yeah. That is what, you know.
Yeah. Let me just put out an alternate point of view on piracy so that we can all talk about it. Piracy, brand building. So when Aamir's film releases, 80% of it's pirated. We assume, there's an assumption that those 80% that are watching the film pirated have the ability, financially, or location-wise, and the time-wise, to see your film going into the theater. That's not necessarily the right assumption.
I agree.
Right? So when we value piracy, the value of piracy, but what is happening is you're building brand. How many of you have heard of a band, an American band called Radiohead? Yeah, okay. Very famous band. Recently they decided to bypass the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper was the music company and said, we don't want to deal with you. They made an album and they released it directly free on the internet. It went free on the internet. So what they were doing was forgetting intellectual property, letting go of intellectual property, and actually increasing their brand, because a lot of people downloaded it. It was free. You know how they made their money? Then they went on a tour. And they made such huge money on the tour. Also, the music companies didn't own a single penny of their tour, because they didn't need them. They bypassed. That's what I'm talking. It's the new economy. So how, that's always going to be a trade-off now. How do you actually, is there a way we can let our things out into the free, let it free into the internet space, and then use our brand to make money? What are the new ways of doing that is going to be one of the ways we'll look at it.
I think there is a way, but certainly not by letting a movie out for free. I mean, I don't think you can, I think you make a movie, the costs of movies are going up, the costs of marketing we've talked about are skyrocketing, I just think that there are windows to follow, and I think pirates should be fought, put away, and one should really take it very seriously.
And if you ever want to put your material out there free of cost, you can. I mean, as a filmmaker, if you decide to make a film and you don't want to charge people to watch it, it's your choice. You can put it up on the net,
So let me tell you something I'm doing, which is interesting. It's exactly that. I'm creating a story, and I'm creating, along with an animation company, a character and a character story. And we're spending a lot of money to put that out virally. Place the character out, free to download, free on the internet, onto the YouTube, and then tweaking the character, realizing how people are, and then finally, once the character is put into, hopefully into the subconscious of the people, then make a movie out of it. So we are putting something out and branding it even before we create an intellectual property out of it.
That's different. I mean, you're building a certain brand for a reason and doing it for free. I start a movie on Monday called Street Fighter, which is based on the video game. It was built off a video game which made billions of dollars, and we are now making the movie on it, and that'll lend to merchandising and licensing of the characters and so on. But that is, you're doing terrific. That's completely different. But for the movie that you make out of that,
the movie that you finally make after making it free and all that, would you like that pirated?
So that's exactly what I said. It's always a trade-off between brand building and creating intellectual property. And this is completely the opposite. You build a brand and then you create intellectual property. So you put something out of free, but that's what Radiohead did. They owned the gate money, once they went on a tour. But
no, but I think the pirates want your movie. They're happy to have the other thing for free, but then they're going to come and get your movie.
Yeah, but there's another thing now. In the digital world, right, the ability of any producer of anything to put out into the market is so fast. Part of the reason piracy came also was that it took so long for you to get your product out. And I'm saying that today, I'm sure, and I think I said it the last conclave, and he still hasn't done it, idiot, was Mr. Spielberg. I said that if he makes, let's say he makes Raiders of the Lost, he's just making it, Raiders of the Lost Ark 6, all right? And he says, because we are what we call, in the digital world, we've created something called an event economy, and he makes an event out of that. And he says, between the hours of 11:45 p.m. and 12 midnight on Christmas Eve, anybody all over the world for $10 can download this movie before it's even released. And we made an estimate that at that time, maybe at least 300 million people at $10 will download the movie, giving him $3 billion, right? So we are in an event economy. So what I'm talking about right now, I'm saying that I think that in the future, I'm not going to go to my lawyers and say, can you give me IP protection for 75 years? I'm going to say, can you give me IP protection for 1 day? Can you give me IP protection for 2 days? So I'm throwing these questions out to the audience. Obviously, I'm taking the extreme point of view to provoke all of you to understand and to try and understand that is in the old economy, in the old world of media and the new world of media, there are many things to approach very differently and in conflict with each other. Things that we accept as moral, like piracy is immoral. And I'm saying, no, maybe it's not. Maybe it's brand building. Maybe we should encourage pirates. The British Empire was formed on piracy. What are you talking about? So, okay.
Now you're really pulling my chain. Yeah. You could get me all revved up about this.
Can we open it out? And then we'll talk about Asia after that. Yes.